Hello again, fellow Mystery Files. Today I have my first of 12 monthly installments where I do a bit of a deep dive into different subgenres of mystery novels, starting out with what I believe to be the most misunderstood, and that is the cozy. It's at least the most inaccurately used term in all of mystery literature. The word cozy misused a lot, and I hope to change some perceptions about what a cozy is. Now, I've been fairly open on this channel that I don't really like cozies, and I know I may be like a little snobbish in regards to them, but I always strive to be honest on this channel. I don't say things for the sake of being polite. I give my honest assessment of things. Now, I have a very specific definition of what a cozy is that I believe excludes a lot of what people typically think cozies are. This is going to sound so bad, but to me, cozies are to mystery literature as to what soap operas are to television. They get the job done, they make money, and they're popular, but are they like really that good quality? No. But I'll get into that shortly. There are no spoilers in this video. And before I begin, make sure you like and subscribe to keep up to date with the channel. Let's begin with some history, because I think the misuse of the word cozy stems from its origins. Pre Golden Age, I'm talking here like even before the turn of the century, before the Agatha Christie's and the Dorothy Sayers and the Rex Stouts came onto the scene, there were two distinct categories of mystery novels: hard boiled and soft boiled. Hard-boiled mysteries is next month's subgenre, so I don't want to get too much into those, but you know what they are. Hard-boiled mysteries are characterized by certain things. They're your Sam Spades, your Philip Marlowes, the Maltese Falcon. They are characterized by a private detective, an urban setting, professional criminals, the damsel in distress. You have chase scenes. There's a grittiness to them. And then you have the soft boiled mysteries, which was everything that wasn't hard boiled. And the soft boiled term, was soon dropped in favor of the word cozy. And I prefer to spell this type of cozy COSY, which is the more popular British spelling. The cozy with an S, when describing mystery novels, should be used as an adjective. These are the soft boiled slash cozy with an S mysteries. They're very varied in content. This category got too big and too motley, so it was pretty clear that this subgenre had to be divided up. But these soft boiled mysteries did still all have characteristics in common, and the word cozy, with an S, used to describe them describes the atmosphere of the novels. It did not describe the contents of the mystery itself, which is what I think a modern cozy with a Z is. So these soft-boiled slash cozy with an S mysteries, what are their characteristics? The reason why they're called cozies with an S is because the setting was comfortable and familiar to the target audience. The plots centered around situations in which the target audience would likely find themselves in: family squabbles, the country house, domestic issues, marital problems, money issues, friendships, wills, love, etc. They didn't feature things like gangsters with machine guns and violin cases, or chasing after professional thieves, at least as part of the main plot line. Readers would be familiar with the kinds of places visited in the novel and the kinds of characters met: the butler, the black sheep of the family, the local reverend, the local shopkeeper. These were characters readers would know from their own lives. Miss Marple's village parallels, if you will. Readers would understand and sympathize with the events that were unfolding in the novel. They were much more realistic storylines, I think you could say, than the hard boils. They were not typically set in an urban setting, and if they were set within a specific place within the boundaries of a city. There was not the whole city at large. It was not an open world setting. The characters are only going to travel within certain limited areas. The murders were pre-planned, murders committed on an intimate scale. It wasn't the career criminal mastermind running a drug ring. It was the greedy relative wanting an inheritance. It was the scorned lover wanting revenge. One of the key aspects of a soft boiled novel was that most of the characters in the book knew each other before the events of the novel. They had backstories and histories. The main detective was most often an amateur. detective, someone whose career is not in the solving of mysteries. On occasion, the main sleuth would be like the country police officer who like didn't come across that many murders. It was not their everyday job investigating homicides. The first, like, really notable soft boiled slash cozy with an S mystery is The Leavenworth Case by Anna Catherine Green. Green is called the mother of detective fiction. Now, she wasn't the first woman to write a detective novel, as she sometimes claimed to be, and there are other sort of like these soft boiled novels before The Leavenworth Case, but they really like weren't notable, influential, or mostly didn't even survive to today. Now, the Leavenworth case wasn't exactly the same description I gave of the soft boiled. I mean, for one, the lead detective, Ebenezer Grice, a fantastic name, by the way, he's a New York City police detective. He's a professional detective, but the overall theme and plot of the novel was not gritty, hard boiled. The bit about the detective being an amateur is probably like one of the squishiest rules here, as evidenced by the fact the very first one broke it. But anyway, probably the most notable to us today, the writer of these soft boils is Mary Roberts Reinhardt, known for The Circular Staircase, and she's also endured for creating the phrase "the butler did it," even though she didn't write that, she didn't say it, but it's credited to her. Anna Catherine Green is writing around the 1870s, 1880s. Roberts Reinhardt is writing primarily in the 1910s, 1920s, which is just before the big names start coming onto the scene like Agatha Christie. As I sort of alluded to already, and as I think you could easily imagine, the soft boiled slash cozy with an S category became very bloated very quickly because anything and everything that wasn't hard boiled got shoved in there. And you had a lot of different books that really weren't similar at all being classified as the same thing. And very quickly, another issue developed that became even more prominent by like the 1920s, and that authors were getting more creative and pushing the envelope. They were blending elements of the hard boiled and the soft boiled together. Christie is really like the one pushing the envelope here, at least the most notable one. I would argue The Murder on the Links is like 50-50 split hard boiled, soft boiled, whereas her two previous works were squarely in one category, soft boiled for The Mysterious Affair at Styles and hard boiled for The Secret Adversary. Even before Christie, even before Reinhardt, you had the likes of Wilkie Collins and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle blending elements of hard boiled and soft boiled. So, what wound up happening is that you had like soft boiled, cozy with an S category fracturing into many, many subgenres within that big category. Big golden age names like Christie, Sayers, Barclay Cox, etc., writing in the subcategory we now call whodunits, also called like puzzle mysteries or cerebral mysteries. Those are not cozy with a Z, and to be honest, I don't even really feel comfortable calling them cozy with an S, since that genre largely no longer exists. And you would have someone like Marjorie Allingham writing a whodunit for Albert Campion, and the next book he's in a hard-boiled mystery. You have like Rex Stout, who's all over the place. The Nero Wolfe novels are sort of soft boiled in terms of plot, but hard boiled in terms of atmosphere and styles. Like, where does that go? Like, when you only have two options. This is why scholars, or really, I guess, publishers, broke up that soft boiled category into all these different subgenres to better accommodate their authors and allow these authors the freedom to write what they wanted without restrictions. It becomes hard to market a novel that doesn't fit squarely in a category when there's only two categories. Take Murder on the Links. I mean, that would be classified as soft boiled, cozy with an S, but as hard boiled elements, and a reader who doesn't want that is going to be disappointed. By creating new subgenres, it gave authors a wide range and freedom and creativity in their works. Which is why I have a problem with the modern publishing industry. What the modern publishing industry is basically doing is resurrecting this soft boiled, cozy with an S subgenre. I see so many mystery novels advertised and promoted as cozy that are not cozy, and this is cozy with a Z I'm talking about. I think the reason is obviously money. I mean, I think cozy readers will only read cozies, while readers of other subgenres will read anything. So publishing houses try to expand the number of people who will purchase any given book. Accurate description be damned. I personally know more than one mystery writer who's lamented to me that they really don't like that their books are being promoted as cozies when they are not cozies, and they're being promoted as cozies with a Z when really more accurately should be promoted as cozies with an S. Forcing authors into this cozy with a Z subgenre is restricting because they do not have the freedom to write what they want in the manner they want. Cozies with a Z have a very restrictive rule set that really can't be broken. That's a key difference to me between the cozy with an S and cozy with a Z. Cozies with an S have very few rules, while cozies with a Z have lots of rules. They're almost complete opposites in that. But what is a cozy with a Z? This is the modern cozy. It's hard to sort of trace the origins of the modern cozy, mainly because this is a genre that's largely warped and misinterpreted. If I had to predict where I think the modern cozy started coming into being, I would say around the 1980s or so. By this time, the last major golden age authors either died or stopped writing. Christie died in 76, Niall Marsh died in 82, Rex Stout in 75, John Dixon Carr in 77. It was sort of an end of an era, and there was an opening for something new. I mean, you did still have P.D. James and Ruth Rendell writing, and they would write for much longer, but they also weren't golden age writers, nor are they cozy with a Z. The 1980s are when you start getting a lot of historical mysteries because the advancements in technology and sciences are making mystery plots harder, which I think is true to some extent, but it also opens up new opportunities. And you start getting like historical mysteries written by authors who did not live during the era in which the books are set. And because of this, these authors are resorting to secondary resources to learn this information about the setting. And it leads to a superficiality in the descriptions. I mean, not always. I think like Lindsay Davis in her Didius Falco series does a great job, but you do start getting a lot of historical mysteries set in English country houses written by authors who did not experience this, and they're extrapolating the experiences of the Golden Age writers who did have this knowledge, but their products lacked a personal connection. A lot of these historical mysteries felt like products of the time they were written in rather than products of the time they were set. And eventually, this turned into the modern day cozy with the Z. Authors of these historical mysteries started focusing on the atmosphere of the time, trying to recreate this era that had passed. The attention of the authors shifted away from the mystery and the characters and to like the vibes. It's the charm of the country house or the small town, and this was what was played up in the writing. However, I don't think we start seeing like a true modern cozy until a bit later on. I think the 80s is the dawn of them, but still not quite like what we have today. I think the modern cozy came on strong within, the dawn of certain television series like Murder, She Wrote, which, again, not really that cozy. Murder, She Wrote is odd and sort of an exception because the episodes varied considerably, and there were absolutely cozy with the Z episodes, but there were also like thrillers. So I don't like personally look at Murder, She Wrote as that cozy, though there are certainly times when it is. Modern cozies focus heavily on the atmosphere. This is very obvious in both the titles of the book and the book covers. I think you know when something is cozy with a Z just by looking at the book. But what are the characteristics of a cozy with a Z? Well, I already said cozies are a subgenre of that soft-boiled cozy with an S category. But that's not enough. All of the subgenres of the soft boil share these characteristics, but cozies with a Z have additional traits not found in the others. I said cozy with an S mysteries are set in a familiar place to the readers and focus on primarily intimate and domestic issues. That is still true for cozies with a Z, but what additional traits do they have? Well, many people consider cozies because of the tone and the atmosphere, and that's certainly true. The tone and the atmosphere is played up much more than just a regular cozy with an S. A cozy with a Z should be just that, cozy, the kind of book you read when you snuggle up in front of a fireplace. A big part of that is the tone. A cozy is very restrictive in order to maintain that tone. Cozies with a Z do not feature foul language, depictions of violence, gore, blood, sex, really anything unpleasant, anything that can ruin the vibes of a cozy. The protagonist is almost always female, like 99% of the time. The protagonist is female and probably an amateur sleuth, though not necessarily so. I think this is where we get a lot of confusion about calling certain mysteries with female authors, amateur sleuths, cozy. Miss Marple is definitely not cozy. Jessica Fletcher is like iffy. Miss Silver, iffy. I think the Murder She Wrote novels have become cozy for sure since the new author took over. That's actually a great series to use to demonstrate the difference between cozy with an S and cozy with a Z. If you read them chronologically, you notice a change over time in tone and the type of mystery mechanics at play. Cozies with a Z are really strongly feminine coded, and that makes sense. They are crafted primarily for women. Most of the cozy mystery authors are women. The tone and setting that coziness to the novels takes precedent over everything else in the cozy. Readers read cozies to escape the chaos of everyday life. They want that feel good feeling when they read these novels. They don't want anything hard and unpleasant to remind them of the real world. They just want a nice, easy read. But there's more to cozies with a Z than just the atmosphere. The atmosphere is a huge part of it, and it's more important here, but there's still other items, because you can have all of these things in a whodunit or a historical mystery or even a thriller. Cozies with the Z is a noun. It is a type of mystery novel, and it has rules set around the mystery mechanics. Because Miss Marple is not a cozy, yet she fits the description I just gave, Miss Marple belongs in the whodunit subgenre. Cozies with a Z is a type of mystery whose mechanics surrounding the mystery are very different from the whodunits. The whodunits are puzzles. They have clues that fit together to be solved. Cozies don't really have that. Cozies have different murder mechanics. The cozy is not about solving the murder using like investigative techniques and clues. It's more about talking to people, and quite frankly, it's given off a lot of like vibes. The character, especially the main sleuth, sort of goes off on hunches that are unfounded. Whodunits also have this aspect, but they have clues as well. And the whodunit goes off of the psychology of characters. Cozies really don't do that. Cozies cannot go into the psychology of characters because that is counter to the cozy atmosphere. That's also why there isn't a lot of talk about like the body or what the crime scene looks like. And that is limiting in the construction of the murder mechanics. You can't talk about things like time of death too much, or like what the blood splatter looks like, or how much blood there is. It upsets the coziness of the novel. And I think a very good indication of whether or not you have a cozy mystery plot is that when the murderer is revealed, that person or people could have been any character in the novel, and the rest of the book would make sense. You can swap out the murderer for anyone, and the book still works. In a whodunit, you can't do that. A whodunit is written leading up to a very specific murderer with very specific clues pointing to that person and only to that person. A cozy doesn't really have that. You could switch out the murderer and the rest of the book makes sense. It's not necessarily a characteristic of a cozy, but cozies are very often themed. So many baking themed cozies out there. Baking, cats, plants, and witches are like the Mount Rushmore of cozy themes. So many baking ones out there. I don't understand how there are so many baking and cooking themed books. I've picked up like one or two in the bookstore, and I may have read one or two, and like this one I picked up was like 90% recipes. Like this was a cookbook with like a short story in it. It's like do not understand how that got marketed as a mystery novel. And now just some like my personal feelings about cozies. I do not really like cozies. Someone commented in my last video about how they enjoy cozies if they are well written. And, that well written part is crucial here. I find cozy mystery writers struggle with writing. Not writing mysteries, I mean with basic writing principles in general. I don't find cozy mysteries that well crafted. The ending is often very rushed, and it's largely because there isn't a substantial plot to lead up to this solution. And very crucially, in my opinion, is that cozy writers spend so much time on other things besides the mystery. Like, I do begin to question, like, if some of these novels are like truly mysteries, or is this like another story with like a death thrown in there. This is a huge problem with long running series, especially where authors are like checking in on recurring characters who don't fit into the story. It's like, why are you doing this? Just fit that character into the story. So much of the cozy mystery is dedicated to the coziness and not like the actual plot. Like, I don't want to sound mean or pick on anyone here, but Joanne Fluke, who writes one of these like baking series, I've read a few of these. Like 90% of her books are about baking, and almost nothing has to do with the actual murder plot. And like she tries very hard to like shoehorn like a cake or something into like the dead body's hand. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, what is this? Now, the Hallmark series Murder She Baked is pretty decent. Again, I don't think it's like an all-time great, but it's decent and is based on the series. I don't know what the book series. I don't think the book series is called Murder She Baked, but I would rather watch an episode of that show than read one of these books. I've only read a few of them because like I just couldn't anymore. But I would personally rather watch a cozy than read a cozy. Like, I don't find cozy stimulating intellectually, which is why I read mysteries. And I know that sounds like really arrogant and elitist, but that's just my opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying and reading cozies. I mean, they're escapism. Like, people need a break from the drudgery of everyday life, and it makes perfect sense why someone would read a mystery like this. It's just not what I prefer. And I said earlier, I think of cozies as the soap operas of the literary world. That's a little mean. They're really more like the Hallmark movies of the film industry. Look, I watch some Hallmark movies all the time. I like Love on the Sidelines. That's my favorite. It's not a mystery, though. But no Hallmark movie is making my top like 100, 200, 300, 400 films of all time. And I think that's like the general opinion of the mystery world. No, I already mentioned that I know of authors who are frustrated their non cozy mysteries get labeled as cozies because cozies are viewed as sort of like a lesser subgenre. Again, that's mostly opinion, but that seems to be the predominant opinion. And since mysteries in general were long seen as sort of not worthy, cozy mysteries are seen as even less so. But you know what? Joanne Fluke is laughing all the way to the bank, I bet. Cozy mysteries sell. They are popular. I don't really keep up with cozies that much anymore. I mean, I used to read a few series, but I just couldn't anymore. Like the Her Royal Spyness series by Rhys Bowen, I used to enjoy a lot, but like I don't even know what's going on there. I mean, the novels got very repetitive, very like spending a lot of time talking about like absolutely nothing anymore. Like it takes like 60% of the book to even start like getting into like the plot of it. The Murder She Wrote books too have gotten like really bad in quality. I wouldn't say the Donald Bain written books are cozy, but the ones from the new authors definitely are cozy, and the quality has definitely declined. And I've also noticed cozy writers tend to put out multiple books a year, which really indicates to me these books aren't getting the due diligence and attention they need in the editing process. You cannot churn out 4, 5, 6 books a year, as some of these authors do. That's absurd. You certainly can't do that and have them be good. Even Agatha Christie didn't do that, and modern day authors are no Agatha Christie. One a year, maybe two, if you're like a particularly good writer, is doable. One final note is that much of my disdain for the cozies comes from not the cozies themselves, but the constant misuse and overuse of the word cozy. It's very annoying to classify things as cozy when they are not. I am sure there are books that I would love that I have not picked up because they're not labeled correctly. I've seen Anthony Horowitz, for example, in the cozy section of the bookstore. I think that's ridiculous. And the Wikipedia page for cozies should be deleted. Like, I don't know who's editing that, who's in charge of that, but like, wow. Some of the titles that have been listed there are absurd. Miss Marple is not cozy, folks. She is elderly and likes to knit and garden, but that's about the extent to which she's cozy. She is far too psychologically probing to be cozy. I don't even think her books are cozy in tone or atmosphere either. The Miss Marple plots are actually pretty dark and gruesome. And I would say the same thing about Miss Silver. I don't think she's cozy either. Now, if you said she was cozy, I wouldn't like necessarily argue with you there, but Miss Silver too is pretty psychological, and the crimes in her books are also pretty bleak and violent. There's a chillingness in both Miss Marple and Miss Silver that makes them not so cozy. And that is it for this video. I hope this all made sense to you. I have so many thoughts, and when I make videos like this one that don't have like a set structure or format, my thoughts get all confused and flustered and chaotic, but let me know what you think about the cozies in the comments. I promise I will not bite your head off if you tell me I'm a jerk and you love cozies and I'm mean. Maybe you could recommend a few cozies to me. Maybe. No promises I'd read them, but still, I'm always open to new things. And next week, I am back to covering Christie and finally getting to my retrospective of Death in the Clouds, which celebrates 90 years in 2025. And if you think I was mean to only cozies, just wait until next week when you hear what I have to say about Death in the Clouds. Not a fan of this book, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, Mystery Files.